cohort, class of 2028. We have 105 students, scholars I should say, that are enrolled in early college high school who will in 4 years graduate with both their high school diploma and their Associate of Arts degree. So it's very, very exciting. We actually have one of our early college high school teachers, James Miller, here. He's teaching our speech and professional communications class to our 9th grade students. They are taking two college courses this year, one in the fall, one in the spring, and then they swap. So there's a college transition course that they take one semester, and they take the professional speech and communications in the second semester. So by the end of their freshman year, they've already earned 6 college credits, electives, but they're awesome. And so just wanted to give you a brief update on that and everything that we're doing in our early college high school. So again, we have 98 total students, 7 in P-TECH, and their semester average was a 98.98% passing rate, which is very, very good. They earned their first 3 college credit hours as freshmen in the fall. They're all working on their second 3 hours in the spring. 44% of them are considered college ready. So they have to take what's called the TSI test. Any student wanting to take a dual credit class at the high school needs to take the college entrance readiness test. But for elective courses, they don't have to pass it. They don't have to test college ready. They just need to sit for the test. Well, when we gave this test to them at the end of their 8th grade year, 44% of those students tested college ready in either ELA, math, or some of them were both. We do have our students that are on the geometry track this year that are slated to take college algebra next year. So they will have to, any of them who were not college ready in math will have to take and pass that in order to advance to that college algebra class for next year. So we do also have our P-TECH students, and so that P-TECH is under the early college umbrella. They're still getting the 60 credit hours, but they're also getting an industry-based certification as a paraprofessional because they're interested in something in the field of education, coaching, training, something like that. So that's really exciting, and that's kind of aligned with our TEACH program that we've had already for the past couple of years. So we are partnered with St. Philip's College, that they've been our higher ed partner for several years since we've offered dual credit on our campuses, and they continue to be our partner for early college. So here's some images that you can see of P-TECH in action in the classroom. We've got a lot of our students that want to go into the field of education or coaching, and they're competing at TAFE, which is the National Organization for Teachers, Future Teachers. They're earning scholarships, they're getting summer internships, and they can, once they finish their degree here, while they're in college finishing their 4-year degree, they can actually work as either a substitute teacher or a paraprofessional and get paid some pretty decent money for a college student while they're finishing out their degree. So that's really exciting. We do have an advisory board for our P-TECH, as you can see. Looks familiar because we were in this room when we met. But we have a group of advisory board members that come together from just industry partners. We've got business partners in the field of education, some from other higher ed colleges, and they just come to support and help us brainstorm on ways to make our program better, and to create more opportunities for things like internships and more work-based learning opportunities for our students in P-TECH. So we just closed the application window on Saturday for next year's incoming freshmen. We've learned our lesson. We're going to keep it open until after course selection for next year because we've got 7 on the waiting list that said, we didn't get it in, but we want in. So we are going to open it up for a little bit more because we can go up to 120 for next year. So we have 94 students that have applied. 17 of them are P-TECH. So really in thinking through like growing our own teachers to come back and work for us and stay in this field, I think that that's an amazing increase from this year. We're continuing to solidify our course offerings for next year, but for our current freshmen, so for the incoming freshmen, they'll take those same 2 classes, And then our current freshmen next year will take an art class, so their third elective, and then they'll take that college algebra if they're currently in geometry. It won't be until junior and senior year that really all of their core becomes dual credit at that point. And so we're retesting our students that are taking college algebra. We're retesting them for those that were not college ready as early as February all the way through May. And so we're really excited that we've got that many students that are wanting to join us in our second cohort. So this is just going to keep going, and I'm really excited about the opportunities that we're providing for our students. Do you have any questions that I could answer about the program? Yes.
So our students who are in P-TECH who want to become teachers,
Yes.
they often go to Cambridge, Woodridge,
Yes.
Howard. Will you speak to our students who want to become coaches? What
Yes.
does their field experience look like?
Yes, so we do actually have one of our senior football players who has been working over at the junior school. So when we first started, a lot of our students, we were just at Howard, and then we expanded over to the elementary school, so then we started going into Cambridge and Woodridge. But now with some of our male P-TECH students that are interested in the coaching field, we're opening up the junior school. And so one of our students in particular, Jackson Moore, has actually gone over there and just basically taken over a whole group of students during the athletic period, and the coaches are grateful for him. So he's getting real hands-on experience on what it's like to be an athletic coach, and also kind of just give back in the way that he feels like his coaches poured into him. Now he can pour into these junior school kids. So it's been really great for him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
You might have answered this already, but is this a program that you have to start your freshman year and then continue on, or can somebody opt in later on in high school to join into the program?
So in terms of getting the full AA degree, you would need to start at the freshman year. We're looking at ways to kind of onboard potentially sophomore year if we can get St. Philip's to offer those 2 classes in the summer, then we could do that for kids going into sophomore year. But for the full AA degree, you would want to start your freshman year. With that said, all of our dual credit courses are open enrollment. So if students that are not a part of P-TECH wanted to take college algebra, or when we are offering dual credit US history or dual credit or any of our on-ramps classes, they can take those just like any other student can, whether they're a part of early college or not. So they could earn more college credits. They may not get that full AA degree, but they could still earn a lot of college credits.
And then these students, if they go on to a traditional 4-year college, they're kind of starting off almost as a junior or a sophomore.
They're
It
still
depends on what-
they're still considered first year college students.
Okay.
They would still need to complete. It depends on what their field of study is going to be. So they may still need to complete some additional prerequisite courses that they didn't have here for their field of study. Some of them may go right into their intended major. It just depends on what the requirements are for that major, right?
Sorry.
Another
My
question.
daughter is part of the program, so
Yes.
that's why I said, and it depends on the college.
It depends on the college.
Well, say that again. What?
Dinora is one of those students.
Oh yeah.
She's going in-
Which grade is she
She's
in?
in 9th grade. She's in
Okay,
ninth
so
grade.
she's in the first cohort.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So is mine.
Yeah.
yeah.
And how's it going as a parent?
Oh, I'm thrilled with the way, even her mindset about school, because she went in there because I asked her to, and I convinced her in a very different way, but now. Like,
She was voluntold.
well, I kind of pretty much told her that you're gonna have a big dash. This is different, and graduating before her brother was a big incentive too, because Miguel is a sophomore.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I like that. So, but now her mindset is so different. Like she's starting to think more like a college kid.
It
So
is.
that's neat.
I will say that the college transition course is an amazing course. I think it's something that every student should take at some point in preparation for
Mhm.
not only college, but just how to be successful at school.
Yes.
You know, how to be organized, how to set goals for yourself, how to figure out what it is you might be good at or interested in,
Yes.
find your passion. So it's been really great so far.
I'm enjoying that part of
Yes.
Can we offer that if a kid's a freshman in college?
That's a great
So I'm curious, Professor Miller, what is something you feel in your communication class that has been like the big light bulb moment for kids? Like Corey spoke about the transition course, some of those key learnings. In the communication, what would you say?
We do a survey towards the end. It's their mid midterm project where they actually think of a survey of something that's interesting to them. They develop questions that they want to ask, qualitative and quantitative questions. Then they perform the survey. They then take all the data, synthesize the data, and then report on the data. And all of them, just watching them transform, that project alone was transformative, because you watch them just not wanting to go and talk to people to being able to stand in front of me and tell me what they learned about what they wanted to talk about.
Nice.
So it's incredible.
Nice.
The last thing I'll say is that something that's very unique about our program, it really sets us apart from the way that other schools do early college, is we are truly a school within a school. So we don't send our kids off campus to St. Philip's to take these courses. We're not currently bringing any professors from outside of our own teachers onto campus. We have really been selective in identifying our teachers who have master's degrees that are either already credentialed or eligible to be credentialed to be adjunct professors like Mr. Miller, or maybe need to take some additional courses and have done that like Mr. Miller to teach the course that we'd like for them to teach. So we have our staffing already planned out for the next, for the cohort to finish all the way through, which is really exciting. So that just means that they get to experience the traditional high school experience like every other student at Alamo Heights High School, because they can still take their electives, they can still play sports, they can still do fine arts, they can still do all the things without having to leave and kind of feel like they've separated off. They're just part of the regular high school. So
Well done.
Well done.
okay.
Can we give her a round of
All
applause?
right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, and it's also applause for all the hard work. This was a multi-year process to get this rolling. Great experiences for our kids, but it wouldn't be possible without all of Corey's hard work, Jimmy's hard work, James's hard. Everybody involved has done a lot, and so I'm glad to hear great stories that our kids are benefiting from that. Thanks. So, well, I mentioned if you can go and switch off of this one and go to the budget one. So this meeting has highs, which is what you just experienced, and it's got some lows, or a low, which and I'm going to reframe it as a challenge. And so some of you might have heard a version of this, but because it's such a big deal for us, it's important that we wanted to make sure this group also has information that they need to know about our budget going forward to next year, the next biennium, which is the next 2 years. And now, this is an abbreviated version of what Dr. Becerra presented at the board meeting in January. And I'm going to cover a few things for you. And because some time has elapsed, I have a few more pieces of information that I think is important for you all to know as parents, but also as just citizens of Texas. And so, hey, Joseph, thanks for being here. That's right, come on in. All right, so this is also one of those things that I really need you guys to be talking about with your other peers that aren't here that you work with. So we're in a tough budget situation, and Dr. Becerra has been talking about this for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. And so a couple of things for you to know is just historically, the state has gone through tough budget times before. In 2011, the entire state was in a tough situation because of the state of the economy. Some of you could remember back all the way back to 08, 09, right, the collapse of the economy, the Great Recession. So the state itself was in a deficit. And so at that time, we all, in all the school districts in the state, had to cut. But that made sense to us because the state itself was in a budget deficit at that time, right? So in 2011, we cut $3 million. We had a budget advisory council that helped us identify what we had to cut. By the way, we never restored those cuts, right? So we kind of tightened it up at that point, went through a lot of stuff, and that was that time. In 2019, the state legislature had a historic piece of legislation called House Bill 3. It passed unanimously in both the House and the Senate, and that was a big deal for funding. I think overall it was kind of an increase of about 20% at that time. And it established a basic allotment, which is how schools are funded, right? For each student, in general, you start with each student gets that much based on their average daily attendance. Right? So that was 2019. It was a great celebration. It was a big deal. They did a lot of work. Well, since that, inflation has basically wiped all that out, right? And so that's really the big story. Inflation and a bunch of other things have. And so going into the 2023 session, which is the last session they had, it was a very different budget landscape. Whereas in 2011, the state was short money. Going into the last legislative session, the state was awash with money, based mainly on inflation because that increases oil and gas prices, which is kind of a lot of that goes into the state coffers. $33 billion surplus going into last session. Not to mention the rainy day fund, which is a whole nother bucket of money. And due to some political maneuvering based on private school vouchers, no additional money was allotted to school districts. Right? And so we're still operating under 2019 funding, but the cost of everything has gone up. You guys constantly have experienced that yourselves. And so we had no additional dollars to adjust for inflation out of the last session. That was really hard. Now, this is just a small graph to show. You guys all know how it impacted your community, but just for your households. But for us as a district, fuel increased 115%. Property insurance went up. I mean, I know I got hit on my property insurance. Health insurance went up. Food costs went up. Electricity went up. And so really, when you adjust for inflation, what it cost in 2019, what we were getting, really should be increased like $1,300, right? Just to keep up. That's not giving you more money. That's just your spending power has decreased that much. You got to get that. Now, I'm not going to do each one of these, but in addition to inflation, there's a lot of these other things that ended up taking a hit on our budget. So going from last year to this year, we already had to make several cuts. We cut 22 positions. We ended up cutting, I think, the equivalent of $2.5 million through a variety of things, mainly through increasing class size and attrition. And so I know you high school students have felt it. Its class sizes are bigger. The teachers have felt it. Class sizes are bigger. Braden had 37 kids in the class last semester. Right? I mean, I think you've adjusted that, but still, that's a lot of kids. And all of that is because we had to cut back on positions to increase class size because we couldn't afford. We had to cut $2.5 million going into this year. Okay. Now that's going into this year. Now we're prepared to start budgeting for the next biennium, which is the way the state does it, right? They have 2-year budgets. And so we now have to identify an additional $5 million to tighten up because we don't want to go another year without a salary increase. Our teachers did not get a salary increase this year. And in an economy in which prices of everything are going up, that's a no-win situation for our staff, right? We can't afford to keep, to recruit and retain good folks if we can't give a salary increase. So we're going to have to cut money so that we can, funnel that back. And that means squeezing staffing, right? So we're going to have less teachers, higher class sizes, but that gives us a little bit of money to give salary increases. It also allows us to adjust for inflationary costs, and it also allows us to protect our fund balance because that's how schools make the payroll. Right? We have to have a little money in the savings because just the way the state funding works, it takes a while to get backfill. And so it's not. It's just like Dana's been saying this. That Dr. Brashear's been saying this for a year and a half. Like it is a very drastic situation. And so what we did, like we did in 2011, we created a budget advisory committee. Half of it was staff, half of it was parents and community. And so the staff that were involved were district teachers of the year from the most recent years as well as a couple years back. We had district teachers of the year on there. We had teachers and staff that understand various special programs like David Stevenson, who knows all of the fine arts in the program. We had administrators from all the areas. Hey guys, I told everybody you were testing, so yeah, you had a pass. And we had parents from all the different campus PTOs, executive boards on this group. And we met 4 times between September and November, and 2 of those full meetings, they were 2-hour meetings apiece, was educating everybody. So they really had a working understanding of both the way funding works, the way our budget works, and the various programs that we're going to have to be exploring in terms of budget reductions. Now the key, the guiding principle was, if it's not required by state law, we had to look at it. And the only thing that you can't cut is something that's required by law, but everything else is over and above. And so we examined all of those things. We did a lot of work, and that group's job was to tell us, well, if we did reduce the budget by that, what would be the impact on our parent community? What would be the impact on our staff community? They were telling us impacts. They weren't deciding what's going to be cut. They gave that information to the Board of Trustees and Dane, Dr. Bashara, and she worked with the trustees, and they took all of that together and they made some recommendations. Now, I didn't give this to you before because I didn't want you looking at it. But this is a summary of the recommendations going forward. And as you pass those around, when Dr. Bashara spoke to the staff last spring, she explained everything that I explained, how dire it was. But she said, I hope, you have to hope, right? You can't give up hope. But we have a legislative session that started in January 14th maybe. And we have hope that some relief is going to come from the legislative session. And so at that time we were hopeful. Well, since then, November elections have happened. Key positions have been either elected or not elected, and various things have happened. And so we now have to plan, right? So we're hopeful, but now we're losing a little bit of hope because of various things, right? So we've heard from the Senate side, they think we have plenty of money. They think we're fine. They don't have any appetite to increase the basic allotment, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. They have published that they want to give teachers a pay raise, which is great for teachers. They deserve a pay raise. But we can, if that money is earmarked only to go there, we still got to cut teachers because it's not earmarked to help us do other things. So it's this weird political game they're playing, which is to say we want to placate the educators by giving them a raise, but that doesn't help the bottom line, and we're still going to have high class sizes. We're still going to have to cut programs because all that money goes to a very specific spot. I'll explain in a minute why that's not the best thing. Okay, now, we don't take this lightly because all of these budget dollars they're your kids and they're our employees. These are all people, they're not just dollars. So it's a really big deal. But we're not done fighting. So I have another handout for you. This is going to lead to an action plan. And so I'm hoping, what I want you to leave understanding is why an increase to the basic allotment is the most high leverage way that legislators can add new funding into the system. It's the most high leverage way. Like I mentioned, if they pass a teacher pay increase, which is what the Senate is proposing, and it only goes for that, that's great for teachers. It doesn't have the impact on the overall programming that we offer because of the way it works. Okay, so check out this handout. If you have any extras, send them back up here because I need to look at one actually. Okay, so here's the argument. And I'm trying to stay away from getting too granular for you because school funding is, I would argue, intentionally complex, right? But here's the point, right? In 2019, when they passed House Bill 3, that legislation specifically included the following triggers that impact the entire system. Any increase to the basic allotment automatically increases teacher salaries. So any increase in the basic allotment, I think it's like 40% has to go to teacher salaries. So teachers will automatically get a raise if you increase the basic allotment. The other thing that's automatic is special ed funding automatically increases. Safety funding automatically increases. And get this, for those people who live in Alamo Heights, recapture automatically decreases. It was built into that law. And so that's why it was such a big deal. They did a lot of work. They did an interim study before they passed the law. And they crafted legislation to try to help us not have a fight every 2 years. They've just got to fund it, right? And this was like a lot of the people in the House and the Senate voted for this bill. They've just got to fund the bill, right? And so this is it's meant to be kind of an eye pleaser, but if we can increase the basic allotment by, just to adjust for inflation, down at the bottom, that's what that means for us, okay? So, yeah, there's a lot of those things there, but that's why you're making the point. Okay, now I'm going to go to an action item, I think. All right, that's the handout. I don't want to spend time going over what the reductions are. I want you to have them. I want you to know that given the dire straits, the board already decided that everything in Tier 1, we're going to have to make those reductions. So we've already talked to staff. Everybody's prepared for that, and we're getting ready for that. Tier 2, we're more than likely going to have to make those, but that decision is going to be made in February. Like, we're watching the legislature to see what's going on. Maybe we won't have to, but I think I'm like 98% sure we'll have to do that. And then the last tier, which is Tier 3, we'll make a final decision about that in March. Again, based on what we're seeing in the legislature. Not sure, just not sure. The House is a little bit behind because they picked their speaker late, and you have to have the speaker to have who's on the committees and to set up committees. And last I heard, they haven't even announced who's the chair of the different committees. The Senate, man, they hit the ground running. They're hearing today on a private school voucher bill. The Senate plans to vote tomorrow, and all the indications are they're going to pass some kind of voucher bill in the Senate. Well, it's still got to go through the House, but that's like, they're still, we have hope in the House, is what we're hoping. At any rate, so here's the next steps. We need our community to call, to visit, to send emails. Calls are more effective than emails. Your legislators, right? And so depending on where you live in the district, we've got Representative Mark LaHood, who visited the high school on Monday. We talked to him Friday. Last week we were visiting with him. We got to educate. He's a new representative. He's got to learn about all this stuff in our district. Depending on where you live, Barbara Gerber Hawkins represents part of our district. Diego Bernal has a very narrow sliver of our district. In the Senate, Senator Donna Campbell, who lives in New Braunfels, she represents most of our district, but also in San Antonio, Senator Menendez has a sliver of our district as well. We met with all of those guys last week when we were at the Capitol. But here's what I need to ask you to do very specifically. Find out where you live and who your representative are. Call every week and say, I'm asking you to increase the basic allotment by $1,340. And your little handout explains why that is. All right? And that's just to adjust for inflation. So with that message, call them. If you have family, try.
So about 10 years ago, I was in college. And I was at the Capitol. They had to mark every time you call. So it is notated when you call. So your call will make a difference.
Yeah, like they'll say, what's your name, what's your address, and they use that they can look up to see how often you vote, which is fine. If you do or you don't, but that's the process. And it doesn't take long. And somebody will answer, and if you call after hours, there's a voicemail, but they will log all that stuff. Now, your friends who don't live in Alamo Heights, you got families and friends, get them to call. Because they live in other places where there's other representatives that maybe they have some influence on as well. And it doesn't matter if the representatives are Republican or Democrat. They all represent everybody who's in their district. And so they all want to listen to people who vote. Right? So you got to do that. Now, sometimes they'll call. Like I talked to a parent who called Senator Campbell's office, and they actually had an interaction with the aide. And the aide said, "Oh, she's all for increasing the basic allotment." Keep going. How much? That's what you say. Well, how much? $10 ain't going to help us. You know what I mean? How much? Now, be prepared for this. In the preliminary budget estimates, they don't think that there's just not. There's literally not enough money. Because there's a big surplus now, but it's being earmarked for a bunch of other stuff. There's literally, from what we've seen, there's not enough money to increase that, to get there. We just know that, there's just not. So if they say there's not, say, yeah, but what can you do? Can you get us halfway? Can you get us a quarter of the way? Don't let them just say there's not enough money. Like, push as much as you can. There would have been enough money had they addressed it last session, you know? When you do something a little bit at a time, you get there. If you put it off too long, of course there's not enough money to do the whole thing, right? So I've given you very easy things. I got you that stuff there. Spread the word that we need to be calling. We visited the Capitol last Wednesday. It's a week ago. Wow, seems like forever. And we've had 9 different meetings with different offices. Sometimes the legislator was actually there with us. Like Representative LaHood was there in the room with us. We had 8 of us there. Trustees, we had a parent from the Alamo Heights School Foundation. We had 2 juniors at the high school, and they did a great job explaining how big their class sizes are and that kind of thing. We got to speak to Senator Campbell, Senator Menendez directly. The other offices were aides, but they were pretty high up aides. We got to meet the guy who runs the Senate Ed Committee, Court Bansky, and he told us there's not money there. But, you know, we get it, but we kind of pushed as well. And so we did all that. That was, you know, it was what it was. I don't know if I would say promising, but it was good to at least have your voice heard. They took their time and they listened to us as well. The House side is really probably our biggest hope. The Speaker of the House gave us some time, which was nice. And he's an education proponent. And so, but he's still getting all his ducks lined up in a row about who's going to chair committees. He wants to do a revised budget. He feels like there needs to be more money in the basic allotment based on what the previous speaker said. And then our trustees are going to continue to work the process of looking at the budget, getting updates from Dr.